Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I was half tempted to start this with just like, hello darkness, my old friend. It's Tottenham Hotspur right now. It's just an absolute mess. Do you know what? The day before the game, I had a Friday off. Nothing major happened for a change. Do you know what? I even made the mistake of saying to someone, I think Spurs actually, today will be fine. I'm more worried about the week to come. Spurs just went, oh, Alistair did a prediction. Let's just take that and throw it in the bin. It just feels like a club right now where just all control has been lost in so many different aspects. I mean, Spurs players lost control of yet another match from being in front. Christian Stellini seemed to kind of lose control towards the end of just kind of chaotic tactics, confused players all over the place. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I think that was a sad aspect of what happened yesterday. I don't think you can ever fault him for lacking in effort. I think he always tries to give everything, but absolutely mistakes have littered his game in recent years. They really have. That first season was so good. We were talking about it as we were waiting for Stellini and Gary O'Neill to come out for their press conferences yesterday. A lot of us journalists, we were saying, that first season, when he was alongside Jan Vertonghen, it almost felt like such a wonderful kind of mentor-protege kind of season. And you could see just why everyone was raving about this young 21-year-old Ajax centre-back. And, you know, Champions League had terrific games up against Ronaldo. He was so good. And then maybe it's tied in with Jan Vertonghen ageing and perhaps becoming an injuries and becoming a less kind of important part of the team. I don't know. But, yeah, I think kind of Sanchez has gone in this downward trend since then. It's really sad to see. I mean, he may well argue that the few minutes he gets here and there, I don't think he started a game since October in the Premier League. You know, he might argue that if you're going to chuck him in there suddenly in all these different scenarios once every, 10 games, he's never going to look sharp. He's never going to have any rhythm. And he is going to make little mistakes and things like that. And then he may say, and I think he's probably fair, that when he has a run of matches, he looks better. You know, end of last season with Romero out, Sanchez was probably one of the better players in that back line in the last few months of the season. But he doesn't help himself. He doesn't help himself in terms of his defending at times. He can look very, very clumsy. And he does. You know, you've heard me say, even at his best, I still feel he does have one mistake a game in him, at least. And it's whether that mistake kind of leads to something. When he came on, a good example of that, I think, was soon after he'd come on. And this doesn't help that, they scored pretty much within a few minutes of him coming on, was when the ball was played across to him, he did fail. It was one of those little technical moments. And I remember Mourinho picking out his technical ability, didn't he, when he was in the final against Mourinho's Man U, and it became this big thing. But when the ball was passed to him in this move on yesterday, he just let it kind of roll under his foot and hit his other leg. And he just had this minute where he just needed to take a bit longer to then get the ball to Pedro Porro. What I would say is that I don't think that shifts the blame off of Porro for that goal. Because I still think Porro then had enough time to do something better with the ball, to clear it, whatever. He instead chose to run forward and unfortunately was suddenly surrounded by three players and lost the ball. Ball ends up going back behind him. And Matthias Vina scored. It was actually like a nice dinked finish. It was a good finish, but he was gifted the ball. So everyone noted the Sanchez kind of mess of the touch beforehand, but I think trying to say Porro was under a lot of pressure is slightly over-egging it. He definitely would have been under more pressure because I had that extra kind of split second to get upon him. But he had loads of time to still do something better with the ball than he did. But there's no excusing Sanchez for the second goal. He was turned so easily by Taverner. Absolutely. Kind of lost him behind him in the build-up to the goal. And then he kind of went, oh, you're there. And then when he turned, it's so frustrating. It's one of those where maybe on a different day you could then say, oh, he did really well to get back and get his foot on the ball. But then prodded the ball straight into the path of Solanke. And it was just, oh, God. And then Solanke actually it was almost a carbon copy of the finish for the first goal. A nice little finish over the diving Romero and Lloris's hand. And that was when it all just started to go just horribly horrible. It was just horribly horrible. So what then happened, again, if you're not aware, the Spurs fans just had enough. And how much would I say? Maybe half the stadium? I don't know if that's fair. Maybe half the stadium. It kind of felt like that at the time. Decided after the restart that every time Sanchez got the ball, was about to touch it, they were going to boo him. Again, doesn't sit right with me. I know where it comes from. I understand the frustrations. But it was like, ugh. You saw a lot of journalists immediately like, what? It was, it was so uncomfortable to watch. We've seen fans boo opposition players, ones that get a lot of stick during games. I think we've seen fans booing their own players for what they feel is a lack of effort. We saw Tanguy Ndombele, remember, when he was booed for coming off the pitch really slowly. I think you see fans boo their own players when there's a lack of respect to the club. Remember Hossam Ghali when he threw his shirt down Martin Jolton, my goodness. But this felt different. This, like I say, was no lack of effort from Sanchez at all. Emerson, wasn't he, earlier in the season? Again, he was booed by the Spurs fans when he was about to come on the pitch. But to actually see one of their own players booing them every time they touch the ball, again, what's the positive? What does that? What comes of that? What's the end game of that? And I think that's the problem. I don't think there is. I think there is just I'm angry and I'm going to let you know. But it almost turns. Maybe it becomes a bit of pantomime, but it's just the most unpleasant, awkward pantomime ever. And it is. It comes from the frustration right from the top of the club that trickles down all the way, and I understand that. But yeah. And again, Sanchez is probably one of those players that the fans look at and say, well, why is he still being used in the team? Why is he not being upgraded? I saw some people saying on Twitter earlier, he had the chance to leave and he didn't. I'm sorry, that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. Davinson Sanchez, from what I understand, for the last few summers especially, has been absolutely open to leaving because he wants regular game time. He does. But I just think no club has ever offered the sum of money that would get Spurs interested. I think maybe one of the windows that Conte actually didn't allow it as well because of the lack of numbers. So, I wouldn't put that on Sanchez. Sanchez, let's be honest, especially this summer, I think he's only got a year left on his contract this summer as well. This is not a guy that's going to be desperate. I think everyone will get their wish anyway. But to put that on Sanchez, that he was sticking around to pick up a paycheck, it's just not true. It's not true at all. And it didn't look good I saw the rival fans piling in on social media. Absolutely like, what a club, all this sort of stuff. This is how they treat one of their own players, blah, blah, blah. It was a bad look. It was a really bad look.